Welcome back to Real America's Pop Culture. It's time for The Brief with comedian Bobby Sauce. So Bobby, welcome to Real America's Pop Culture. Let's get right into it. Old marketing videos are resurfacing, showing a hospital, Boston Children's, promoting puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeons on healthy minors. And they were proud of it. And thanks to an ex-user, the receipts are now back in circulation. And they're trying to scrub the evidence, but the internet never forgets. As you know, there's a footprint. So let's take a look at some of these disturbing clips.
Gender-affirming hysterectomy is very similar to most hysterectomies that occur. A hysterectomy itself is the removal of the uterus, the cervix, which is the opening of the uterus, and the fallopian tubes, which are attached to the sides of the uterus. Some gender-affirming hysterectomies will also include the removal of the ovaries.
I love talking about what it means to be non-binary. I'm non-binary, and so I use they, them, their pronouns. So when we think about non-binary, really what we're talking about is people of a variety of gender-diverse identities that are outside of the typical traditional gender binary. Man and woman is typically what we think about as the gender binary. So non-binary folks are those of us who live within that, outside of that, beyond it, and essentially transcend it in some way. So it might be folks that feel like they're a combination of masculine and feminine, or that they're entirely outside of that construct or that context altogether.
All right, so I have a few things with this. One, it's like they're speaking another language. This certainly isn't English. I mean, I couldn't even follow the video. It's also very vile. I can't believe these people are like proud to go to work if this is what they're doing. This is the work they're doing. And third, to me, this screams surgeries for profit. This does under the guise of we're helping children live their one true self life. So can you weigh in on this, because I'm clearly disturbed?
Well, the psychologist or whatever, the one that was at the end there, it's so funny. You can create yourself, you can place yourself into like a supposedly oppressed class by just willing it into existence. You can just decide, well, I'm a they, them now, and now you could put the camera on me, and I could educate you about this thing that you don't understand that wasn't a thing until 5 minutes ago. So it's like you can place yourself into this kind of like a victimhood mentality, or this victimhood position that makes you different than other people just by decree. And look, I'm not all that concerned with people manipulating their bodies as adults. I think it's sad. I think it's a lot of mental issues, and you're trying to physically solve something that really is inherently mental. But the biggest problem of all of it is when they do this to kids. And I think that's what all of us had a problem with primarily, is that this was being pushed on kids under 18, making decisions that are going to manipulate their body for the rest of their life and are irreversible. And the fact that they're profiting on top of that, on top of already doing demon type work, I think is so troubling. And it's just funny watching them talk about it as if they're somehow virtuous over like light piano music. It's really dark and sad, and I think it's a mental problem. But at the very least, I'd like to see it removed for kids. I think that's the most basic thing any rational human could want.
Absolutely. I feel like everyone should rally behind that. So I bring this up because the next story I want to share with you is just as disturbing. So Speaker Nancy Pelosi said she's working to legalize sex changes for minors at the national level. So just days after President Trump signed an order protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt called it disgusting and accused Democrats of leaning in on child mutilation. So Pelosi even pointed out that the trans flag that's flying outside of her door on the daily, let's look at this clip, but she's obsessed.
I don't know what effect we can have nationally with what we have going on in the White House and in the Congress. It's really very sad. If you were there, outside our door, we have a trans flag. Outside of our door in the congressional office building, we have the trans flag, as do some of our other colleagues. But that view is not necessarily shared by people on the other side of the aisle.
The obsession is insane. And I think, we'll see in history that there's a 3-year period where people are just obsessed with this transgender issue. I don't know what it is, but, her having to, specifically talk about the flag that's outside of her building, I mean, she fully can't relate to this issue, but the accession is crazy. So what do you think it is, and why do you think this is such a big issue that we seriously have to talk about all day, every day in the media?
Well, when you think about how dirty the game of politics is and how filthy it is and who they're willing to stab in the back, who they're willing to grift off of, what they're willing to lie about. It's like when you think of politics, Nancy Pelosi is politics. It's like this human being, allegedly human being, I'm going to say maybe lizard, but anyways, when you think about this person, this thing, this is the embodiment of everything politics has to offer, which means that they will say and do absolutely anything to advance whatever they need to advance. They will lie, they will cheat, they will steal, they will manipulate people, they will allow people to hurt themselves. She doesn't care about supposedly trans kids in the same way that she didn't care about George Floyd. They saw an opportunity to advance an agenda, to get a little bit of attention, to supposedly gain some fake, empathetic, supposed brownie points, and they're seizing on it. The fact that it's trans kids, she doesn't care. It's like if you were a non-empathetic demon type, you would lie about anything and everything no matter what it was. And it's like if you're going to kneel in the Capitol Rotunda with the likes of Chuck Schumer, also highly probable lizard. You're going to kneel down in the Capitol Rotunda with like a kente cloth for George Floyd when that has absolutely nothing to do with anything and allow that to be videoed. It's like you don't care about anything other than pretending that you care about things enough to get your agenda advanced. She doesn't care about the kids. She doesn't care about who's being manipulated. She is politics. She is the embodiment of the swamp. That's why they're talking about it.
That is, I couldn't agree with you more. And so moving on to someone who knows he is a man, so opposite of this conversation, Pete Hegseth. So he says it's time to get back to basics in the military, starting with tough, no-nonsense basic training. He blames politically correct standards for weakening our forces and says how we start determines how we finish the fight. So for me, look, like we know that military recruitment is way up. Strength is back in. Masculinity is back in. I don't know how we can be the strongest nation in the world if we don't have those physical fitness tests going up and all the requirements and standards. So what are your thoughts on this? And do you support him putting this up front?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that kind of like one of the basic ideals of conservatism just in general is that the simplest things have worked, and what's worked for thousands of years will work into the future. You know, focusing on basic training as opposed to, I think it was Mark Milley that was like, I want my force to read about white fragility or whatever it was and learn about that. It's like, you need to just go back to the basics. It's almost like in reality, the real thing that works is like Sylvester Stallone in Rocky. It's like when Sylvester Stallone needed to train for his fight, he goes in the woods and chops wood and does pull-ups and hikes through the snow. And it's like the most technologically advanced guy that's training with all the technology and running with the masks on or whatever else. It's like doesn't do as well as the guy that's just chopping wood out in the forest. It reminds me of like when I played football in high school. We lifted heavy, dusty, disgusting weights in a terrible weight room that was not hygienic. When they put in a brand new gym, the kids became a little bit softer. Sometimes the basics is what you need to make the most efficient fighting force. And getting rid of all the distraction is what is absolutely necessary to make the most efficient of anything. And I think the military is definitely the best place for that to happen. So I'm happy that he's doing this. I think it's more than obvious to any rational person that this is what needs to happen. So good on Pete for it.
Yeah, and obviously, and the numbers are up. So another person that I want to talk to that aligns with the strength is Governor Ron DeSantis. So he's taking aim at property taxes, saying that they should be abolished everywhere. So calling them an unfair burden on American homeowners. DeSantis is positioning himself as the anti-tax crusader going into the election season. So let's take a look at what he said.
I bought it in 2018. I'm like, you've made a lot of money off that property since then because the values have gone up. And while there's good for that because people that own it have more equity and have more wealth, you know, the reality is if they're going to come tell you your house is worth twice as much than what you purchased it and you got to pay higher taxes as a result, that's a negative of having rising property values. And it's an unrealized gain. You sell your house, it's one thing on a transaction for someone to say to tax, like a sales tax, but to say you're just enjoying property and all of a sudden the value, so you have to pony up. We don't really do that in anything else. I mean, you buy a stock, you hold it, and then you're taxed when you sell it. The stock doubles, they don't just tax you as you hold it. So unrealized gains is not the way you want to run a tax system, but our property tax system basically relies on these unrealized gains. So we're going to work hard to provide relief, but ultimately we can't, as elected leaders, deliver the relief without the voters approving it at the ballot box. And so just get ready. You're going to have an opportunity to do that.
All right, so you gotta love Florida, right? I know you're a Florida resident, and I love that they just, put things out there that kind of make sense, kind of common sense to me. But what is your take on this? Could it work?
I absolutely think it could work. I think there's no question about that. America doesn't have a taxation problem. It has a reckless spending and squandering problem. It's like the difference between having a successful government and not is not how much money that they can extract out of us and, they need more. They need the billionaires to pay their fair share. That's not the case. It's because they recklessly spend. The thing about Ron DeSantis that's so amazing is that he's a super, super smart guy. And what he said right there is something that I've heard almost no other politician mention ever, which is you are getting taxed on an unrealized gain, which is an incredibly important point. And it almost makes you seem like, how did they even get this to be approved in the first place? The sad thing about Ron DeSantis, which is why I liked him when he was running for president, and a lot of people gave me a lot of pushback for it, is that it's hard for him to be likable. It's hard for him to market himself and deliver the message in such a way, but he is a great statesman. And he's a highly intelligent guy that if you understand the substance of what he's saying, you realize how great he actually is at his job. Of all the politicians we have and all the Republicans and all the free speech advocates and everybody else, I don't think I've ever heard anybody ever suggest this. And he's 100% right. You are being taxed on an unrealized gain. I really hope that he can pull it off. And if he can get it on the ballot, I know the people of Florida will certainly elect to have it taken away. So good on him. I wish we could have more people like him.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I'm in favor. So, Bobby, stay with us for group chat later in the show. We'll be right back. But up next, we talk to a tried and true Made in America patriot. So we will be right back.